Hi everyone, my name is Anna Stevens. I am the author of the Godblind trilogy, which consists of Godblind, Darksoul and Bloodchild, which are published by Harper Voyager in the UK. I'm not going to read from any of those today because it's really hard knowing which bit you can read from, especially in the third book of the trilogy if people haven't read it all yet. So I'm going to read my short story that was published in the Art of War charity anthology called Flesh and Coin, which is the first outing of my mercenary captain, Syl Stoneheart. Shout out to everybody in lockdown. I hope you're all doing okay. I hope all your friends and family are well. We're all fine. Thanks for asking, if any of you did. I have decided to give up dyeing my hair. Well, there's no one here to see it but my husband. So I'm kind of going for a Rogue from X-Men look with just this like one white streak. I'm hoping it's only going to be one white streak. It's probably just all going to go white. But, you know, what can I say? Some things are not important anymore. I am beginning to learn. I've got some goodies in the background here. Like some lovely little things that people have sent me that are all Fox God related. You guys know who you are, and thank you all for doing that. I've also got some Star Wars stuff. I've got Jareth from Labyrinth, TARDIS, and various other little bits and pieces. Up on the wall up there, you can probably just see, is a picture of David Bowie, one of my all-time favourite musicians, holding a black and white photograph of Buster Keaton, my all-time favourite silent movie star. So yeah, welcome to Anna's place of work when she's not dicking around. Okay, Art of War and the song Flesh and Coin. They called her Stoneheart, and they didn't smile when they said it. Didn't mean it as a joke or a mock. They named her in the old way, and there was nothing she could do about it. Can't argue about getting a name, but of all the names she'd hoped for herself as she made her way into the ranks of mercenaries, as she'd climbed those ranks like ladders, Stoneheart wasn't one of them. Quick Strike, Spearfast, Steel Will, those were names she could be proud of, names she could wear like a badge, carry like a banner. Not Stoneheart. Not cold and hard and without mercy or regret. Stoneheart. But what could she do other than smile, big and bold and mocking, chin up and a challenge in a cocked eyebrow? Stoneheart, aye? Sure you want to find out just how stony? But right now, Syl Stoneheart had more pressing concerns. She crouched with her company on the western slope of the ravine, scrunched in among boulders and scree, 24 women and men in scuffed leather and ragged shirts, chainmail muffled under jerkins, spears and bucklers plain and functional. Nothing fancy, nothing shiny or noisy, just quiet, grim-faced folk in a quiet, grim ravine on the road to Talonest. Syl hated ambushes more than she hated stupid fucking names. Too many things to go wrong, too many unknowns, and worse, too much time sitting, waiting, thinking about all the things to go wrong. The boulder was cold beneath her cheek as she rolled her head up to peer around it. She could see a quarter mile before the twisting road vanished around an outcrop. Every stride of that quarter mile was empty as her purse until the job was done. A guarded wagon will traverse the ravine an hour before noon. Bring me its contents and I'll give you a bag of gold. Tinker's words echoed in her head. She'd asked what size bag of gold. On reflection, she should have asked what size guard. Still, she'd the numbers to see this through and another tale to add to the Stoneheart's glory. The company opposite was silent and invisible. All gone, she supposed, quelling the urge to spit. Wouldn't surprise her if Garn Spineless had lived up to his name and fled with his fighters. She'd have to be the Stoneheart if he had, have to be ruthless if she was to get this done with only half an ambush team. And done it had to be. Her belly was emptier than her purse, and her company, while not yet muttering, had taken to exchanging meaningful looks when they thought she wasn't looking. A crew that did that was a crew only days away from meaningful words with their commander. And after that, there was nothing for it but meaningful fists and terminal knives. The Iron Blades were a good company. She'd no desire to be gutted by them, or forced to do the gutting herself. There was a clatter of stone behind her, a muffled curse, and Syl reached back and opened palm in question. Ren slid to her side, well down on his belly where he was hidden. "Rock scorpion," he said. "Dealt with." Syl stuck up a thumb, eyes fixed on the path. Still empty. She let out a soft breath and sat back, checking her crew for the 20th time. Rock scorpions. Just what they bloody needed. Syl had seen men die from rock scorpion stings, black and screaming as their skin split from the swelling, like watching someone get turned inside out. Spineless cawed like a dying rook, and Syl's fists clenched as she looked to the road. There. She reached back again and found a part of Ren, shoulder or knee, squeezed twice, paused, then once more. He shifted from beneath her hand, back to the others to pass warning. Long minutes crawled by, slower than a long death, before the clop of hooves and creak of harness echoed up the ravine. They were cautious now, alive to danger, archers on the flanks, the wagon in their midst. Syl cursed silently when she identified the guards, the bleeding eyes, led by none other than Etta Scarlet herself. Just what I fucking need. Still, had to happen sometime, I suppose. Old scores and all that. Whatever was in those barrels stacked so ostentatiously on top of the wagon, Syl knew it wasn't what they'd been hired to steal. They were close now, and Syl could see the unease in the guards, the distinctive red makeup across their eyelids and noses highlighting the flickering of their eyes as they scanned the high scree and rock walls hemming them in. Etta didn't hire fools, and if she did, word had it she killed them herself. They all knew this was ambush territory. Syl could see it in every taut line, every horse's snort, every jerky twist of the head. It was also the only decent road to Talonest. Garn's dying rook called again, and straight away the eyes reacted, half closing in around the wagon, the rest in squads of 3, bows drawn and aiming for the rocks on both sides. "Come on, Spineless, now would be good." Garn had the better eye line, so it was his decision when to trigger the ambush. Soften them up with volleys, then pelt down the slope and take it hand to hand with the survivors. Chances were the eyes would press forward rather than try and manoeuvre the wagon around to flee back the way they'd come. Soon as they started running down the ravine, they'd run slap into the 3rd company Syl had insisted on recruiting, never mind that it would reduce their cut of the takings. All rested on Spineless moving his fucking arse, though, and so far, Spineless didn't seem inclined to do so. Syl didn't want to have to take on the eyes alone, but the Stoneheart had a name and a reputation to uphold, coin to earn to fill an empty purse. The Stoneheart would give the order even if Syl wouldn't. That's how it worked with names. Excuse me. The quarry was deep into the ambush zone now, moving at a trot, keen to be out the other side, and still nothing. Not an arrow, not a war cry, not so much as a fart on the wind. Spineless, toothless, cockless old bastard. Loose. Syl ground her teeth together. The front-riding eyes were almost out the other end of the ambush site. Much further, and they'd have ridden straight past Lob and his squad as well, and the lot of them would be left hiding in the rocks and stroking their cocks. Those who had them. Not today, Spineless. Arrows, Syl hissed, low and urgent, and her dozen archers slithered into position. Now, she added, not bothering to wait, not giving Garn another second or the eyes any more time to exit the ambush. Arrows arced up to kiss the sky and fall, humming, whining, screaming to find marks in 7 eyes, 1 horse, the wagon itself, and 1 entirely innocent rock by the side of the trail. More in the air, and more, and arrows coming back the other way now, random, without targets, just loosing and hoping, trying to disrupt the iron blade's rhythm. Still nothing from Garn, though, and Syl wondered if she'd been listening to a dying rook after all. She thought about abandoning it, running the way Garn must have, but it was too late. Besides, she was a mercenary, and a damn good one. Her crew, too. She was a fucking Stoneheart. We go, she said low. Count of 20. Archers, keep their heads down. 1, 2, 3. The wagon had stopped, and a couple of eyes were rolling barrels off the top. The others hunkered down in whatever protection they could find, behind boulders or shields or the wagon itself, loosing back where they could, mostly just hiding. With arrow shot only coming from one side, it wasn't that difficult to avoid. Piss and vinegar, but they looked a sloppy crew of amateurs in front of Etta. Take the loot, and I called, gesturing at the barrels. Syl huffed a laugh through her teeth. 11, 12, 13. But it faded when the barrels came rolling in their direction, all the way to the edge of the road. Her gaze wandered the path, and she noted that now all of the eyes were huddled behind the wagon with their horses, as far from the barrels as they could get, and that one was now standing, smoke and yellow streaming from a fire arrow. Syl's eyes darted back to the barrels. Get that fucking archer now, she screeched, not bothering with quiet, and 3 arrows arced into the air, but the one on fire was already flying in the opposite direction, trailing smoke and spitting malice. Down! Syl hunched small and panicked behind her boulder, knees by her ears, arms over her head. The explosion rocked the ravine, shook the ground, and started several small avalanches of loose scree and pebbles. A shockwave of burning barrel splinters and rock shrapnel burst up the slope, and something laid open the back of Syl's hand, stung her ear sharper than a wasp. Excuse me. The excitement, sorry. Horses screamed and careened madly down the trail, and there were shrieks as blades were caught in the blast, and one deep, ululating wail that spoke of injuries Syl couldn't cure out in the wastes, and probably not even if she'd been a surgeon in Talanest. Hooves faded into the distance, most of the screaming stopped, and a sort of quiet fell. Still alive, Stoneheart? Came the deep, amused voice of Etta Scarlet, bane of Syl's former existence, the voice that still made her cringe inside. That you making that sweet music? Alive, armed, pissed, Syl yelled back, checking as many of the iron blades as she could without giving away her position or letting any part of her body show past the protection of her rock. Her hand was bleeding good, hot and sticky, the fingers slow to respond. On a job as it happens, she shouted, and I know the real cargo's under the awning, so how about you drag it out and leave it with us? No more fighting, no more killing. You can be about your day with no hard feelings. She squinted up at the early sun. Isn't it past time you were passed out drunk somewhere? Sounds like a plan, Syl. A real good plan, and I've got a thirst brewing. Just one problem. You don't count that most of our horses have bolted. Syl's guts tightened. Yeah? What's that? She called, peering up the ravine for Lob and his fighters. Plan or not, you hear fire barrels go up and you come running. Friends need you. Hells, even acquaintances, even people who were mostly enemies needed you when fire barrels were in play. Me and Spineless and Lob don't want you to have it. The words dragged Syl's full and disbelieving attention back to Etta standing concealed at the edge of the wagon. They wouldn't. They fucking had. Etta, Etta, Syl yelled after a long pause. The drinks made you a fool. You really think they'll honour the bargain? You should know better than to trust scum like them. Silence answered her, and Syl took the reprieve to pass her orders with a series of simple gestures. You're saying they double-crossed me? Etta called eventually. Why not? They have me. Probably just waiting for us to wipe each other out, then claim the booty for themselves. They wouldn't. Etta said, but there was doubt in her voice now. Doubt was dangerous on a battlefield. Doubt was deadly. Sil laughed and held up 3 fingers to her blades. Wouldn't they? 2 fingers. She rolled onto her hands and toes. So where are they then? Haven't killed us. Aren't aiding you. 1 finger. They're on your side. Why aren't I dead? She didn't wait for an answer, instead bunched a fist, and her archers loosed 3 quick volleys to keep their heads down and kill the wagon horses. Best hope the cargo's lightweight. And Sil was up and running, dodging boulders, skidding through scree, using the butt of her spear to leap over rocks, mouth stretched and a howl tearing its way out of her throat. The Iron Blades were with her, as always. Whatever their opinion of the situation, when the Stoneheart called the attack, the Blades attacked. There looked to be a second of genuine surprise from the bleeding eyes, but then they were racing into a ragged line. A savage grin split Sil's face as she vaulted the last rocks down to the road, landing in a spray of dirt and shrapnel and punching her spear tip into the groin of the closest eye. She felt the blade lodge in and then skitter off the bone, dragging, cutting deeper, and wrenched, twisting as she did. The eye shrieked and flailed a longsword at her, but Sil was way out of reach of the blade, and the woman's leg was already buckling. Sil punched it in again, gut this time, and left the eye to bleed, scanning the battleground for Etta. Is it finally time for that reckoning, Etta Scarlet? Finally time to see who's got the bigger name? There, backing slowly away from the wagon, 2 blades hunting her. She was about to tell them Etta was hers when a man charged her, looking ridiculous and embarrassed with red paint on his face, caked into eyebrows that were a weapon in themselves, though the sword he swung was no joke. Sil battered it aside, but he was quick, so she ducked back out of range, skipped sideways when he followed, whipping the spear around her so fast it did the job of a shield, then stabbing out with the butt and crunching it into his sternum. Blow like that didn't need a blade on the end. She heard his chest crack and he crumpled, wheezing, sword drooping and free hand pressed to his chest. His mouth gaped for air his lungs wouldn't take. Sil readied the death stroke, paused at the call of a sick crow. You fucking wouldn't, she whispered. But Spineless fucking would. He was. Arrows rose into the sky, humming like massive, pissed-off bees, and fell indiscriminately among Iron Blade and Bleeding Eye alike. Sil ducked beneath the big man as he slumped, felt the impact as 3 arrows took him in the back. Those had most definitely been aimed at her. You traitorous bastard dog, she screamed in Garn's direction. She crawled from beneath the corpse, found Etta, raised her chin. Etta scowled, nodded. Deal. Archers, volleys, Sil spat. Stand with the eyes, she added, and the Iron Blades disengaged and formed up alongside the men and women they'd been trying to kill a second before. The eyes moved just as swiftly, as though it had all been rehearsed. If this had been rehearsed, I wouldn't have 7 crew dead that I can see from here, and Garn would have been spitted on my spear, arsehole first, a long stretch of day ago. You coming out, Garn, or do we need to come in there and drag you out? Her shout was all bravado. Chances of anyone climbing into that mess of scree and boulder with the intention of coming out with captives was slimmer than a starving snake, but it was worth a try. I think not, little girl, Garn yelled, and Sil's eyes narrowed. Not unless you're thinking of dropping those trousers and giving me a scene too. Sil sighed. Yeah, that one never gets old. She raised her voice. How about you drop yours first and I ram my spear up your shitter? Instead of a reply, there were arrows, and the blades and eyes scattered for cover. Sil snared Wren's gaze, a flick of the fingers and a jerk of the head, and the man grabbed 2 more blades and slid behind the wagon, then ducked into the rocks on Garn's side of the ravine. They're keeping us here, Sil whispered at Etta as they crouched together behind the dubious shelter of a dead horse. Waiting for Lob's crew is my guess. I've sent Wren to scout, but a perimeter would be a fine idea about now, yeah? You're a backstabbing, crooked-dealing little bitch, Sil Stoneheart, Etta said, and the line of her shoulders spoke of her defeat. This a double cross? Knew of Garn's deal with me, did you, and then offered him a sweeter purse to kill me? Seal's mouth was hanging open. And get my own killed alongside yours? Gods, but the drink's rotted your brain, Mother. This isn't a double cross. Whatever we've done, no matter the blood in our past, I wouldn't set you up to fall in front of your crew. I'm Stoneheart, aye, but I'm not a cold heart. Or a cunt. More arrows killed the conversation. Seal's stomach churned. Etta really thought her capable of that? They hadn't spoken much in recent years, true enough, and the words they had said had been bitter and full of sharp edges, but still, Etta was her mother. She chanced to glance over the saddle. There were men picking their way out of the rocks on the opposite side of the ravine now, Garn and his crew coming to end it. Pity, Etta said. What is? This had hurt me less if you had betrayed me. Etta's knife took Sil in the gut, the point penetrating the jerkin, sticking in the chainmail, and then, mostly because Etta was hammering on the hilt with the heel of her other hand, sliding, squealing, grating through into flesh. Sil gasped in a breath and found both her hands on Etta's, straining away even as Etta strained in. What? She managed, and then groaned, the sound as long and protracted as the blade's slow path through her flesh. You really thought I'd forgiven you, girl, Etta grunted. You killed Diran. You killed him and then you walked away like you'd saved the world. Her breath was liquor rank. Had this coming a long time. It was a long knife, and a lot of it was inside Sil now, hot and cold and sharp and liquid and pain. Dead gods, the pain. Fire chased ice, chased molten steel in her gut, and Sil's strong hands were weak, slipping from her mother's, implacable, unstoppable. She wanted to remind Etta that Diran had been a flesh peddler, snatching and ransoming important people's children, that he deserved every hour of the death she'd given him when she'd seen what he did to those whose families couldn't pay. But the knife had taken her voice, just as surely as it was taking her life, and the words stuck in her chest. I have a reputation, little girl, forged from my years with Diran, Etta hissed. And the bleeding eyes have a reputation. So expect no mercy, daughter mine. Expect no leniency for your crew. They all die here, with you. Etta snorted and a faint smile crossed her face. I'm a poet. Poet, is it? Sil groaned. Then rhyme this. The last of her strength went into ramming her knife up under Etta's chin and into her spine. Missed the joint that would have killed her instantly, but caused a fair amount of surprise, so she at least stopped pushing the dagger into Sil's gut. Etta's hands rose to her throat and a look of pure panic crossed her face. Jugular. Red, gushing death. Only Sil had missed that too, on account of being skewered like a rabbit, so the blow, while serious, hadn't yet killed Etta. Can't be having that. Sil grunted, slapped Etta's hands away and waggled the hilt of the knife, sawing the blade left and right, hoping something inside would snap and kill the old bitch. Something snapped, and Sil was coated in hot, sticky red. Shouting, the pounding of feet, clash of weapons and grunts of pain as the iron blades and bleeding eyes started killing one another again in response to the bloody tableau of mother and daughter and dead horse and red. Lots of red. And then Ren was there, planting himself over Sil and kicking Etta square in the face, sending her over onto her back. Blades, he roared, protect the Stoneheart. More arrows, a shriek of pain from close, so close, and the edges of Sil's world turning black. She clutched Ren's leg, tugged on his trousers. What? He snarled. What's the cargo? She panted as a horrible emptiness found her. Fuck should I know? Show me, she demanded. Her hand fell limp. Opposite, in a tangle of smeared red makeup and greying hair and bubbling pink froth, Etta watched her with dead eyes in a dying face. She seemed oddly triumphant. When it was over, when Spineless's crew had fled and Lobs had been cut down to a man and the bleeding eyes had thrown down their weapons for mercy, the blades didn't much feel like giving them. Wren opened the hidden door in the side of the wagon. He peered into the gloom, knife held tight in his fist. Gold? Sil coughed, still hoping even now. Not exactly. Wren's hand trembled and he sheathed the knife. Come to me, he said. I promise you won't be hurt. There was movement, a shift of material, a whimper, and the girl wrapped her arms and legs around him as he lifted her out. He looked to Sil. Tinker's not having her, Sil managed. Her gaze wobbled across the kneeling eyes. This what you do now, she panted. This how you line your pockets? We ain't pure and principled, a grizzled woman shouted back. Gotta eat. Us too, but Tinker's still not having her. Children are not currency. Wren's eyes were cold. Then it looks like we need us a new leader, he said. And as I'm carrying the cargo, guess that makes it me. 3 days to Tinker's hideout and the gold, lads and lasses, or you can stay with the dying. The iron blades looked between the two, Wren standing tall, Sil lying in a pool of her own blood. As one, they moved to Wren's side. The bleeding eyes scrubbed the paint off their faces and followed. Bye then, Stoneheart, Wren said. Sil waved a bloody hand. Shit, she said. And that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. Everyone stay safe. Wash your hands. And let's hope that this is all over soon. Thanks for listening. Bye.